All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning and wishing you all a very, very happy new year. Once again, we are back with a very powerful, very riveting podcast episode with Air Marshall Anil Chopra ji, who is in our midst. And it is our absolute pleasure and honor to have him here. I will start the podcast and I will request our guest to give a kind introduction and also kindly share with our viewers and all the youngsters who are tuning in his Josh, his motivation, and why should all of us be interested, be tuned, and also have a motivation to join the Forge someday. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. It's a pleasure to be, on your show and to be interacting with the youth. And I've had occasions in the past. I go to universities, I go and give talks, and it's absolutely, great pleasure. And I must also mention that when I go to university, the kind of interaction, what the questions these young people ask, I feel very proud that Indian youth is going great guns, and we are looking forward to an outstanding future for this country. So, with this little background, let me quickly first introduce my own self. I belong to a small town in Punjab. I was born in Kapurthala and in a middle-class family. And at a very young age, I was 8.5 years old. I joined a Scenic school, which came up in the town there. And from there, at 15.5 years age, I had cleared NDA, went to National Defense Academy. At the young age of 20, I had become a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force and were already flying fighter jets with dropping bombs, firing guns and rockets. So that's been my initial beginning. And I must mention a little bit about my service career before you get me going into questions and answers. After I became fully operational, became a qualified flying instructor, became a test pilot. Thereafter, I was selected to go to France for training on Mirage 2000, and I'm a pioneer. In fact, I was in the first formation of Mirage 2000, which landed in India in 1985. And we all know that Mirage 2000 is an outstanding job. I later commanded a Mirage 2000 squadron, commanded two operational air bases, one in the western sector, one in the eastern sector, was head of Air Force in Jammu and Kashmir, and thereafter I retired as head of HR in the Air Force. God has been kind, even though I retired in 2012. Since then and now, I have continued to serve the nation in some capacity or the other. I became a member of the Armed Forces Tribunal, which I was there for 4 years. I worked with National Green Tribunal. I was in the Executive Council of Jawaharlal Nehru University. And now for the last 3 years, I'm heading the Air Force think tank called Center for Air Power Studies. And it's a pleasure interacting with you, Tanya, and through you with the rest of the youth. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful yet brief introduction. I must tell you that it takes immense, I think. It is extremely difficult for a veteran to put an entire illustrious career of mapping so many years into such short words, which I'm so glad you could. I mean, to start with, I just wanted to lay some context for all of our audience members. I wanted to understand from you, sir, there have been multiple, I'm sure there must have been multiple milestones you've achieved all across your illustrious career. Would you, if you can, share with the audience one milestone which has really stuck with you and which was your aha moment, which was the moment which made you realize ki haan ji Anil mere ko karni hai join Forge. Actually, for the viewers as well, my grandfather's, whose name is also Anil, was also in the Air Force. So it just gives me great pleasure to share this with sir. So over to you.
I am indeed feeling very privileged to be talking to a young lady who's had military veterans in the family, father and grandfather, and I salute them for the service to the nation. And I must mention that the single greatest thing that happened to me in my life was being a fighter pilot. Everything else fell around it. I keep telling the youth that if at the end of your life you were to say that if I have to live another life, what would I like to be? And in my case, it will be to be a fighter pilot once again. And Tanya, it has been a great journey. Fighter flying is out of the ordinary. every profession in where there is a high level of risk, that gives you higher levels of excitement. There are other professions which have got even higher risk than perhaps fighter flying. I love the guys who do skydiving, do free falls, and from there they open a parachute. I love the guys who do deep sea diving. I love lots of other professions where there is a lot of risk and there is action. So fighter flying has been the single point, if I may say, which excited me the most, and my rest of the career, everything has been. The second thing I want to mention at this stage itself is at a very young age, I realized there were two important words in my life, and these were passion and enthusiasm. And I think these are not only applicable to fighter pilots, applicable to every youth. Everything that you do, any profession you are in, if you're enthusiastic, you are passionate, then you are bound to succeed. The output is going to be higher, and you are going to be a great asset to any nation or any family or any society. Yes.
Absolutely, sir. And I have very rightly would like to point out and highlight how sir said having a fire in your belly, having that passion and enthusiasm is extremely important. So, Aj, through the medium of this podcast, we wanted to just understand something given the context of a lot of events geopolitically happening right now. Let me take the instance of the NAM Summit, which is the Non-Aligned Movement Summit happening in Africa, Uganda. So India has traditionally maintained a policy of non-alignment. As a Fauji, as a veteran, as somebody who's been a part of the armed forces for as long as your service, can I ask you to share certain insights wherein your association also with institutions such as CAPS, are talking about India taking a center stage when it comes to diplomacy, or more on South and South cooperation, India, Africa, India and the developing countries taking a forefront?
Tanya, firstly, I must mention that India has come a long way since we got our independence. You know that till about 3 centuries back, India was one of the most developed economies. We had nearly 17-18% of the world's GDP, and in the last nearly 250, 300 years, we sort of we were exploited, and then finally, when we got our independence, our share of the global GDP was only 0.5%. And I'm very proud as an Indian to know, I must tell you, that we are today already the 5th largest economy, will soon be the 3rd largest. We are the 4th most powerful military. We are leading in many things. We are self-sufficient. Even during COVID, we managed everything on our own. We didn't have to depend on the rest of the world because we produce everything. We are self-sufficient in food, milk, you name it, medicines, everything. So that is the big starting point. I have always felt that non-alignment was a good, policy, and technically non-alignment after the Cold War finished has has not remained as relevant as it was during Cold War. Because we didn't want to take sides in the global power structures. But a good term that has now been coined by India is strategic autonomy. See, once you become a significant power, we are technically the 4th, most powerful nation, and soon maybe 2nd or 3rd. So my contention is that we have, the whole of global South looks at. When we bought the Mirage 2000 Rafale, there were a large number of other air forces bought the same aircraft because they said if India can select an aircraft of this type, that means it must be good. So same has been applicable to everything that we do. The global South, we saw during G20 recently that how the global South has got galvanized with India. You must remember, India has not been an expansionist nation. If you see the history, last 2,000 years of Indian history, we have not gone invading countries. People have come, invaders have come. Columbus was looking for India because of the wealth and not for anything else. And so has been, finally Vasco da Gama found us. So the point I'm making is that India is a very responsible country. We are looking for strategic autonomy. Can you imagine today's time that we are very close to the Russians? Of course, we were close to the Russians since the 1950s because the Americans though they are America and we are the biggest and longest, oldest democracies, and yet we could not align with the Americans because Americans wanted us to be part of a bloc system and we were non-aligned, and therefore we became friendly with the Soviet Union. And today, look at our situation. That when it came to Ukraine war, whether it's in Israel-Hamas war, we are being able to take independent stands. When we bought the S-400, though the CATSA was being applied by the Americans on others, including like Turkey, they gave waivers, especially to India, because Americans are wooing us because India is an important power now. This is everybody wants to align with us. We are a huge market. We are one of the biggest markets to sell things. We are good people. We are not arm twisting type of people. Even our friends around us, they like us because we don't arm twist like some others, like China does in its BRI. Even Americans do some kind of arm twisting. So the kind of visit, our foreign minister has just visited Russia. Prime minister is going to go there a little later. So we are doing a great balance, and most of the West Asian nations and ASEAN countries, especially who are on our two sides, they are looking up to India as a leader, and the amount of visits that we are exchanging between all these is phenomenal. We have got the African Union to come into G20. We are getting them closer into the BRICS. So you will find that India will continue to have a very responsible, important position as the time goes by.
Undoubtedly, sir. And you've highlighted it so correctly that India has really led a lot of pioneering efforts. As a pioneer of the Mirage 2000 fleet and a test pilot, sir, what are some key technological advantages, any advancements that have happened in the entire aerospace industry? Of course, Indian Air Force, but also commercial flying when you look at it. And do you think it's sort of significantly impacted the dynamics when you look at the international relations, the entire space that we are in?
Yeah, let me look at this aerospace, how it is important for. Firstly, I must say that by the middle of last century, all major powers realized that he who controls air and space controls this planet. Space is the ultimate high ground. Today, everything, all our day-to-day life, whether it's a mobile phone, internet, GPS, connectivity, you name it, everything is through space satellites. And there are such a large number of satellites, and numbers are increasing, and their satellites are helping us look at our agriculture, forest cover, water, you name it, everything is being handled. So space has become, and I'm very happy and proud to say that India in space is among the top 5-6 countries. Everything, whether it's the capability to launch, to make satellites, to do missions. We're the fourth country to reach the moon, and we've gone to Mars, and we're doing it at a much cheaper, lower cost, all this. So space, big action. And it's not only the navigation, the targeting, the communication, everything is from. So from a military point of view, space has become very, very important. As far as air is concerned, I must say that all the leading technologies have, first come up in air because, the air is a front end of technologies. Air gives you global reach, global strike, precision, flexibility, versatility, you name it. Air is the first mover in an HADR, means when there is an earthquake or a calamity, the first to move is the air because you reach the fastest. So air has the speed. So considering all this, air and space are very, very important, and they have strategic connotations. We started becoming closer to America after 2000. And if you see in 2008, we got the P8Is, and then we got the C-17, C-130s, Chinooks, the Apaches. We subsequently got helicopters for the Navy, and we got the guns for the Army. All this has happened. Bulk of it is air. Why? Because Americans still hold higher technologies. We need modern weapon systems. And air is one area where technologies are on the higher end. All the countries hold technologies closer to their chest. Nobody wants to share. Costing is very difficult. And therefore, if there is when we are talking about Atmanirbharta today, the most important area where we need to do research is especially in air. Of course, other places also we need to do that. So air and space, all operations on the ground, whether it's surface operations, subsurface operations, they're all impacted by air. More and more armies and navies in the world are wanting to acquire aerial platforms than their own integral tanks or ships, because the action is in the air, and I think everybody needs them. Yes.
Absolutely, sir. Very rightly pointed out. Actually, when we were researching as well, and because we thought that reading two books is not going to do us justice to even form or be close to getting a questionnaire for sir. So, I mean, since our audience will also be watching, we want you all to warm up and also to see that sir's website, Air Power Asia, it's really dedicated, especially for students tuning in, for youngsters. And I like that you have really educated the common youth and the common masses on air power, on strategic issues. So, if you were to name two strategic issues that you think require most focus of India's foreign policy at the very moment, and any key message to the youngsters who would like to be a part of this bandwagon?
Yeah, firstly, let me quickly tell you about Air Power Asia. The day I retired, and I was having retired as an Air Marshal, I went to meet the chief at 5 o'clock in the evening to have a cup of tea with him and to thank him for what the service has done for me. And I told him, I said, sir, from today onwards, I will be the foot soldier of Indian Air Force, trying to project the Indian Air Force and air power from outside. He said, no, you're an air marshal. You are not going to be our foot soldier. You're going to be our ambassador. I said, no, sir. Ambassador is a big word. Foot soldier, they are the guys who actually deliver. The ambassador may take credit, but I'm not looking for credit. So that is the background with which I started Air Power Asia. And my aim was to connect with the youth, to connect with boys and girls in universities who, unfortunately, the school children and the civilians know so much more about the army, because army is visible all over around them. The air and the sea, they are a little far away to the common people. And I thought it is very important that somebody must educate them. How does an aeroplane fly? What is all these air and space all about? And therefore I started, and you won't believe it, in the very first year, I wrote 160 published articles on that website. And I made many of the youngsters write, and I would help them by editing it, putting some pictures, contextualizing the whole thing. So that is how Air Power Asia has come. Now, coming to your main question, that is, what are the areas? You see, there are many areas that, fighting war is inevitable. In an inevitable situation is different. But first thing that the militaries do is deterrence. If I have a strong military, I'm going to prevent anybody from attacking me, because if he'll attack me, he'll also lose lives, he may lose territory, etc. So first is deterrence, the military does. There are many other aspects. During peacetime, not only that we train to for the eventual possible war. No militaries want war. They just prepare, and that's their job, to defend the country. But ultimately, we help the civil administration, whether there are floods, there are earthquakes, there are various calamities. In J&K, we know that the roads get cut off, the air goes and picks up people. In J&K, we are helping schooling, we are helping people on hilltops to get access to food and electricity and various things. So within the country, we support the government in large number. And then we do defense diplomacy outside. When the ship makes a port call, an Air Force aeroplane transits to another country, the air exercises, military exercises, the Army, Navy, Air Force does different countries, our defense attaches, our air shows that we organize. Then we have our flying displays like Sarang and Surya Kiran, when they go around the world flying. These are all meant for defense diplomacy. And even our training courses that we conduct in Staff College, if foreigners come, we go and do the courses abroad. You are building bonds between friendly countries, you're promoting your culture, you're promoting your country and building great relations. And I must tell you that this is a huge contribution of defense, other than preparing for war, to build bondage and links. Yes.
Definitely, sir. In fact, because previously when you were answering the first part of the question, मुझे ऐसे ही एक anecdote याद आया, and I'll just share it with the audience also. A lot of times at the toll, a lot of armed forces personnel, anyone trying to cross borders, be it Noida to Delhi, Delhi to Gurgaon, are stopped and asked कि हाँ टोल का पैसा दीजिए. तो हमसे भी पूछा था एक बारी, and my father simply said हम नेवी से हैं. तो कहते सर नेवी क्या होता है? हमने तो आर्मी सुना है. So the common, I think, sight of having armed forces personnel, especially synonymous with the army, is very often seen. Air and naval forces are slightly I feel that the same amount of attention or attraction is also coming up, and that is where we want your insights as to why should we motivate youngsters to join specifically the Air Force today. What are the key charms, especially for some students or even the youth who would like to be serving the nation in that capacity?
Let me start by defense forces as a whole. A large number of my friends who are industry captains, people who became president, like Kalam, President Kalam used to say he wanted to become a fighter pilot. He first came to an Air Force center. Later on, he found that due to some medical reasons, eyesight, he couldn't become fighter pilot. So he said, I'll become an Air Force engineer. So I know industry captains who told me that when they were young, they wanted to join the Air Force, Army, Navy, whatever. So what I'm saying is that at a very impressionable age of around 14, 15, large number of youth of the country want to join military for some reason, family pressure, peer issues, medical, some other reasons, they may not join. I'm not saying that the other profession is not important. The country has to be run by all kinds of people. But I must tell you now about the armed forces. But you are, of course, picked up very young. You are disciplined, you're inculcate the national pride, you inculcate service before self, you look after your Johns more than you give greater importance to them. Then, of course, professional work, like in any profession, you do, whether it's you're flying or you're in a tank or in an infantryman or in a ship or a submarine, you have your professional jobs. I don't want to get into the professional part of it, except to say that all these jobs are extremely exciting, challenging, adventurous, etc. Now look at the quality of life. Other than discipline, look at the way your families get involved, your children get involved, the exposure that you get, the fitness, the discipline, the morale, the sports that you play. How many children in the country can get to swim, have a swimming pool within the base? You have you can go and play golf, you could do microlight flying, parasailing, you name it, a large number of things which are not openly available to outsiders. We within the services, they create environment to bring up our children in the kind of exposure they feel military children. You've been a Fauji's child, and the Fauji children are doing exceptionally well. A large number of them are sitting on top of, in the corporates, and they are doing extremely well. They are, very resilient. When they get into the market space, whatever profession they finally join, they create an environment around them. The people love them, and they do an exceptionally good job. So the point I'm making is that the armed forces give you an environment other than your military job. For you, your wives do welfare activities, wives are, bringing up the children, they're secure in a secure environment. So there are lots and lots of things that the armed forces are. And now for the Air Force, as I said in the beginning, that aviation does have, whether it's transport helicopter flying, but certainly the fighter flying is even more challenging and exciting. Imagine doing aerobatics. We all have seen on Republic Day when the Su-30 finally does the final vertical Charlie and salutes the president, raising flares. The amount of claps that you get from the crowd is absolutely outstanding. And that is what is the future for you, young people. If you join the armed forces, I can tell you with great pride that there is no profession better than being in the armed forces. And the whole country, everybody, whether it's a politician, bureaucrat, armed janata, everybody looks up to you with so much respect and regard. And the kind of salutes that you get all your life, my God, it's outstanding. Yes.
Yes, sir. I think this has really enthused us with a lot of more josh, and I think a lot of tuners and listeners would like to note this. So I will just take our podcast on a little more technical tangent at this point. What I did want to, of course, highlight is sir talked about how, of course, a lot of Fauji brats or a lot of Fauji kids and also the community is it builds resilience. There was a Navy SEAL veteran who I think in a very very famous video WhatsApp पे बहुत forward होता है. I'm sure all of you must have seen it. कहते हैं कि अगर आप सुबह अपना बेड बनाते हैं, it really I think it sets the tone for the day. It also puts you 5 years ahead of your peers. So if you just dedicatedly give yourself that time, so I think 4G lifestyle really gives you that sense of discipline. Now, sir, coming to the technical question, I do understand that you have been a more distinguished member of the Armed Forces Tribunal. Can you explain to us how military law and justice, they're sort of interlinked with global diplomacy, and especially when it comes to our international conflicts? I just wanted to give you a cue that Kulbhushan Jadhav last year, and of course, for the many years, that has been a very long-standing issue of India and Pakistan related to our international law and arbitration. Where do you think that we can have any kind of mediation ground in such scenarios?
Yeah, no, let me first separate out the two things, Tanya. First, the AFT part of it. You know, we have a constitution which is the highest document for all legal purposes, the constitution. And thereafter comes the various number of acts, rules, etc., that the country enacts, the parliament enacts, and then that becomes the guidelines for running. And of course, there's the criminal procedure code, and you know, some of it, these things are also being reviewed now. But there is a civil system of governance in the country for which there are laws, and the laws have to be followed. For the militaries world over, certainly in India, of course, that there are separate acts made. Now, these acts have to be made separately because over and above these things that we have to do as good citizens, the military has a peculiar condition. We have to fight wars. We have to be in close confined camps. And then we have to have some, you know, special acts. We have also to protect because we have a hierarchy. It should not be that senior bulldozes you, you know, for some small thing, he courts martials you, punishes you, which otherwise, as an Indian citizen, you deserve a fair chance. So therefore, the Armed Forces Tribunal have come up, and it was my proud privilege to be a member there because I got to see the you know, legal system closely and how to you know, administer law when it comes to armed forces. Typical cases it relates to the pension, disability, promotions, court martials, etc. These are the type of cases that we get in armed forces tribunals, and I think the armed forces tribunals have done a great job. You know, for international laws, the conditions are different. You know, for every corporate world, in every MOU, every document that we sign in the civil world, it is very clearly mentioned where is the jurisdiction. I mean, when it is a multinational company, whether it be, you know, it happens to, like it happened in Union Carbide, whether our law will be followed, the US law will be followed, or some other countries, or some international. So there is the International Court of Justice. It's in Hague, in Netherlands. I've been there, and that is supposed to do arbitration. Now, how powerful these are is a question mark. We know that in arbitration in South China Sea, the National Court had said that the Chinese had incorrectly served a large part of South China Sea, nearly 3 million square kilometers. That's a huge area, and there are 6-7 ASEAN countries which have got affected, and they've lost, you know, EEZs, or even some of them have lost islands. So in international courts, there are. So what is normally done is For example, you have taken these cases of our sailors who have, in Qatar. Now, a lot of diplomacy is required at this time. The governments are talking. We ultimately are Indians. We do not support any unlawful activities, be it by our people, by anybody. But we also know that in some countries the laws are a little more ruthless. What is going to happen to Kulbhushan in Pakistan? How they're going to treat just because he's a man in uniform? Will they be ruthless against him? Will he get a fair trial? These are the issues where diplomacy comes in, and it's not only diplomacy. You put pressures through other countries, from friends, and with the governments, to find a way out in this. So I basically, Tanya, wanted to explain that armed forces tribunals are different. They are an internal thing. They have to give justice to our soldiers who might have been wrong during their military service. But as far as international law is concerned, while there is an international law and sometimes people don't follow it, but we have to use our diplomatic means to find, we know that some of the people who are considered as terrorists are floating free in the rest of the world, whether in Western countries or in Pakistan. But it's not easy to get them over. But all kinds of, in fact, we know that there are economic offenders who have gone and taken refuge somewhere else. So those kind of things are, but the governments are that, and military doesn't have any direct role other than internally to highlight these issues to the government to say that it is unfair, it's been happily incorrect. Yes.
Right. So thank you for clarifying that doubt I had, and I think most of us would as well. So just as a last question, we will trouble you. And of course, we've highlighted to the audience the several awards and decorations over the years that you have had. We would like to address that as the Director General of CAPS, which is, for the audience to know, it's a Center for Air Power Studies. So you oversee a lot of operations related to research on air power specifically and our national security. Given that we spoke about a few diplomatic issues, geopolitical issues, how do you think that CAPS is contributing to the nation's strategic thinking as well as international relations, along with a few other think tanks that we have, think and do tanks today?
Yeah, Tanya, think tanks are meant to be autonomous. They are supposed to be bodies which have scholars who do research, who have the time, they're given facilities, they have libraries, they have connections to internet, they have connections to special databases, which sometimes you have to procure by investing money. And each think tank has a core area. For example, Army, Navy, Air Force, there is a joint think tank also of the three services. Ours is an air and space think tank, but we have some outstanding scholars. We are the best think tank today on nuclear energy and nuclear strategy. We have a great faculty for neighborhood studies because their neighborhood is very important. We have a great faculty for Indo-Pacific. And of course, the main bread and butter for CAPS is air and space power. We get students mostly from universities in Delhi, like JNU people who are either studying for their PhD or just finished their MPhil. They come and join us. We groom them. We give them an environment for research. We mentor them. We have at any given time some 10, 12 children from all over the country, including from South India, who come and we mentor them and they do the internship with us. So first this is how we go about creating an environment for the individual to blossom and bloom and become an important citizen and researcher, whether he wants to become a professor later on or he wants to just finish a PhD, have some other plans. There are many people who join the MEA or, they go to places from where we have got scholars from who are sitting in Taiwan today or in Sweden, in many countries, Germany, US, UAE, you name it, our scholars from CAPS. So I must say CAPS is a very respected think tank, and the amount of people who are wanting to join us is absolutely phenomenal. Now, what do we do? See, we sit and evolve the kind of subjects we want. For example, in air and space, aero engine we have not been able to make in India for the last 40 years. We are trying. It's a core area. But there are only 5 countries in the world make engines. Even Chinese are struggling to make engines. So we did a odd study. Took us a year. What should be the roadmap? Not such a study we have placed on the tables of the NSA, on the Defense Minister's table, Defense Secretaries, the 3 service chiefs, the CDS, and many industrial houses. We have sent them those reports to Tata's and others, that this is what we suggest is a roadmap. Like that, we are doing air and space related. We are doing a study on hypersonic. We are looking at space. We are running special capsules for the government and the militaries on space, on cyber, on nuclear, and so many other issues. So what we are doing is we are not only researching, we are putting in public domain a lot of information, data, views, options, challenges. We are putting that on. Now, people ask me many times that as a think tank, what change have you brought? It's an ocean. There are many people who are doing all kinds of studies, plus the people who are sitting on high chairs today, they've got their hands full to run the armed forces, to run the Ministry of Defense, to run various other things. But more and more materials that you research and put on the table in public view, it generates discussion, and it finally helps evolve good decisions. I personally feel that even if 10% of what we all write and research gets read and shapes the mind of the policy makers in security establishment or in the government, I think it's a damn good achievement. 2 things are happening parallelly. One is we are getting scholars to gain knowledge, write books, and they move off in life and take important positions. And this shaping of the mind will help them when they get to the new chairs. And second is to help the government and different security establishments to take their final calls based on data analysis research that we are putting in public domain. I think the think tanks are doing a fairly good job, and we are generating. I'm proud to say that I have 850 published articles as of date. In last 4 years, I have written 8 books. So that's one hell of a lot of content. You won't believe it. If I have to write 80 articles in a year, that means every 3rd or 4th day there's an article of mine getting published somewhere, which is my average for the last 3 or 10, 11 years. 850 is a big number. So that's the way we are all. It's payback to the nation. That's the word I use. All my years' experience, I could be just spending my weekends enjoying, relaxing, watching movies, playing golf, all of which I also do. But I must, also pay back to the nation all the, learnings that I have done, including coming on TV debates, going on to colleges to address the children, and universities and things like that. Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much. And I think it's given us immense motivation, especially for young researchers, because it is a field that often requires hours, strenuous efforts, and sometimes people do lack motivation. But I think listening to you and hearing the volumes of publications and content that you have amassed over the years, I think it is no joke to reach the stage where you are. And I think for a lot of youngsters tuning in, it will be an aspiration truly. Thank you, sir. With that, I would like to take any closing remarks you had for Team IFPD, for me, for the audience who will be tuning in, and then we'll close the session for today. Thank you so much once again for agreeing to be a part of this and sharing your nuggets of wisdom today.
Yeah, so Tanya, let me say my last piece, over and above the passion and enthusiasm which I have spoken of. One more thing I think is important, which I try to follow. Very early in life, I started identifying and choosing my role models. This is very important, because if you choose good role models early in life, then you have a value system getting into place in your mind. This is the kind of values if you look at Dr. Abdul Kalam, you look at some of the other people, or Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, some other. and some of these generals, Sam Manekshaw, some of the air chiefs, PC Lal, for example, there are many people from whom you can imbibe some very, very good qualities of leadership, of decision making, of living your lives. So the point I want to make is all of us must have some good role models, and those role models, we must pick up some traits of theirs and we must model our own self. My second point on the same count is that as you grow, you should become a role model to somebody else. If you have had role models and somebody can make you his or her role model, then I think you have done a great job, because there are people looking up to you, for I wouldn't say for guidance or but to look at you, to take your the traits, to take at look at the content that you have generated. So you need to become a good role model, and the day you start becoming a good role model, you'll become a good human being, which is a very, very important part of our lives. Be a good human being is more important than even being a good professional, if I may use that word. So therefore, role model is the word I thought I must mention at some point. Yes. And thank you, Tanya, for inviting me. It was a pleasure. And I'm very impressed with the big smile that you're all the time giving. And I like people who are smiling. They generate positive energy. And, I felt extra enthused seeing your smiling face all the time. God
Thank
bless
you
you.
so much. So thank you for
Thank
that
you.
compliment. And once again, a big thanks to everybody who was patiently listening to us today. I'm sure you'll have lots and lots to pick up from today's podcast with Air Marshall Anil Chopra ji. Thank you once again, sir. And this is a wrap. We'll be tuning in and coming up with new podcasts very soon. Thank you so much, sir. I'll stop recording.
Yeah.